can I become a gun carrying American? I served in the Army, and I was a very good shot and that's the only time I've ever handled a gun in my life. I was very good at it, and they said it's because I didn't have any bad habits that a lot of kids did growing up hunting with their dads or hunting with their friends. I didn't have that, so they taught me how to shoot, and I shot really well. The day I left the Army, I haven't thought about a gun until this year.
Can we identify ourselves politically? Because anytime we talk about something on the show that is like so wrapped up in politics, I think it's good to sort of like talk about where we are.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I am a Christian. I identify as a Christian, and I'm not a perfect one by a long stretch. And I do have a lot of red friends who are very extreme red friends.
Yeah.
And I think because of the way I look, that I look like one of those.
Middle-aged white business owner.
yeah, really. And I'm in the construction business, and I seem very conservative, So I think that makes a difference. I mean, we have a friend who is actually a politician who's Democrat, and her husband's extreme Republican, right? So it happens, and they're very happy together.
Well, with who I've worked with and my friends, I almost have a dead mix 50-50 politically. And it's interesting. I had somebody, one of my Republican friends, be like, "Did you move to Texas because of politics?" And I was like, "No, it's because I was working on building trailers and land." Like it's
for love. You came in with there for love.
Right. Period. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I just want to state that like we're apolitical. We're not defending or advocating one side or the other with guns. We are simply talking about like our experiences with guns, what we think is responsible, and what drives somebody to become a responsible gun owner, and whether or not does that make sense? Like, does it make sense for us?
When you go to big mega churches, there's a lot of dangers. There's school shootings, there's church shootings, there's people that come in with who want to get the pastor because of his religious beliefs or political beliefs. And I started serving at my church they call it the safety, but what it is security. So they need a certain amount of people at church who carry gun. They need people for security, but and in my church, the new church I serve at, there's a shortage of those. So I went to a class to get my concealed guns permit so I can bring a gun to church.
Okay.
Sounds crazy saying it out loud, but so this is all new to me. Now I'm 49. Again, I haven't touched a gun since I was 22. Now you carry a gun, right, Joe?
Yes.
All the time?
So I would carry if I was traveling around Oregon for distances. I would carry if I was going to a job that required me to carry, and I would carry if I was going to camp. If I was going to go, outdoors, basically.
So I told Joe I'm going to do this, right? We're going to this class, and I had gone to gun shops through the years with friends or whatever, and I always marveled at. I like to watch the people in there. They get so excited, and to me, they're like those people that go to like car shows who are just really into the gearheads who really like to talk about the horsepower and how the cars are made and all this. The gun people are even worse, and I see them getting so excited, and I can see everyone's testosterone. And so Joe told me that when you buy a gun or hold a gun, what is it? Your testosterone actually goes up.
Yeah, there was an old study that crack.com made jokes about. This is where I learned about it, and they were talking about how there's studies of like if you are a guy and you hold a gun, it temporarily makes your testosterone spike slightly, which they take cheek swabs to find that, like your hormone levels, which is amazing. Yeah. And
I can see these men and women peacocking around there. So I find my gun buddy, my very, 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 very Oregonian. See, Oregon's very, very unique in that the city is very, very liberal. And then as soon as you get outside of Portland, it becomes the very opposite. It's very extreme. Wouldn't you say, Joe? I mean, it's
urban to rural. Yeah.
And I'm sure it's a lot of places, but here it's pretty extreme. You can almost see it, right?
Yeah.
And so I go to this class. The first thing that popped into my head, it's at this self-defense place. I thought that I was being pranked, Joe. I thought this was a Saturday Night Live skit. I was looking around because this guy was this ex-cop, and he went on this rant, this aggressive rant of how our rights are being taken around. He went over federal and state laws for 2 hours.
Oh my God.
It was exhausting, and I was confused. There are so many little laws about if you have a concealed weapon between public schools, churches, private businesses, Indian reservations, state parks, national parks. You would have to carry a lawyer with you at all time to know if you're in compliance with the laws of carrying a firearm.
Right.
I mean, am I right? I mean, it's crazy. And there's different laws for different counties and different.
And there's certain places where if they post a sign that says you can't carry, there are some places where you have to obey it, and there are some places where it's a suggestion by the business, but the business can't actually tell you whether or not you can carry or not. There's differences of if you have a different weapon on you, if you have a concealed carry card, the cops aren't supposed to ask about the other weapon because your concealed carry just I don't remember if that was I took my class years ago. So it might have changed, but yeah, there were so many little intricacies and weird loopholes, and yeah, it was crazy.
They went on and on with these different codes and all this stuff, and I'm thinking, someone should be writing this down. Well, the big thing that I heard a lot was fear, and they were talking about all these situations, and I heard at least 30 times in this 6-hour class, if you're dead, people are going to rape and murder your family. I heard that at least 30 times.
Wait. You mean like if there's a home invader and you're taken out as the
they're gonna
man of the house,
right?
The next target is going to be your family.
Yeah, and your kids and your wife are going to be raped. I mean, I heard that 30 times, Joe, and I was like, whoa. Now I don't know how realistic it is to live that way. I could see if you're in law enforcement, or you're an FBI agent, or even in the military, to do this situational things, but I don't know in your writing career how many times people are trying to murder you on a daily basis, Joe. I mean, how often are you throwing lead at somebody?
It depends on if a review is really bad or if you give somebody really bad criticism. I'm saying not often.
To me, it felt like they were selling fear.
Is it while you were in the class, or do you think generally speaking gun culture sells fear?
The latter.
Okay.
What do you think?
Again, years change. Like I got my class done before the changeover between Obama and Trump. Like I took my classes quite a long time ago initially, and then you re-up it, and you don't have to attend the same big sort of heavy class where they hit you with the fear. So I think politically times were different, but I believe gun culture generally does. The selling point is fear. It depends on what level you're at too. Like if you are a casual gun owner and you're just out for hunting and self-defense, the selling point is you can shoot somebody if they come into your house, or you can get food if you absolutely need to. But the underlying threat there is there may come a time where you can't get food other than using a rifle, or there may come a time where you can't defend your family other than with a pistol. And then it just goes up from there. It's then the fear that gets sold at higher tiers is it is the tier above that, like a used car salesman. Hey, like here's the next tier. It's you're gonna have to defend your country, and the next tier is your own country is gonna come for your guns, and
right.
Yeah.
And,
well,
and
it's yeah. Go ahead.
And that's what I put as a statistic that 27% of police officers in their careers fire their firearm, and I've heard a lot lower than that. Well, again, they're in domestic violence situations all the time, daily, right? You and I are not in that many of those. I used to live a lot different life. I used to do a lot of drugs and hang out places I probably shouldn't have, and would go out and was out at 2 a.m. every night, which is, you put yourself more likely. But again, I don't know how likely that is. How can you stay trained and diligent on that for that long?
Right.
Waiting for something that hopefully will never happen, but probably most likely will never happen, right?
Okay, so I'm actually going to answer one of your questions real quick with a bureau statistic. You asked, if your home is burglarized or robbed, the very first thing that will happen is they will take you out and then they will rape your family. I pulled
That
up
rape and
statistics
murder.
from the Bureau of Justice and Stats. We'll leave a link to that in our show notes. Quote, an estimated 3.7 million households are burglarized each year on average. In about 28% of these burglaries, a household member was present for the burglary. So one third of the burglaries, somebody was home.
Yeah.
In 7% of all household burglaries, a household member experienced some form of violence or victimization. I'm not going to get any more detailed than that. They classify it as like rape, assault, robbery, aggravated assault, simple assault. So like in all of the burglary cases, 7% of them result in somebody basically coming to direct harm. Um, so
They're
yeah,
at 3 o'clock in the afternoon too. That's the one thing we learned in that class. That's when the time is. It's in the afternoon. It's not. I always think 2 o'clock in the morning, right? That's
yeah,
my fantasy. No, it's they're all like the majority of them are the afternoon time.
right. It's not insignificant, but it sure as hell isn't as bad as a class like you were talking about would make it out to seem.
Well, I'm laughing about it, Joe. It was upsetting to me. You know how protective I am over Joanne, and I don't like the idea of her feelings being hurt. So somebody's sitting there telling my wife's going to be murdered and raped if I don't protect her, and I felt that way at church. I felt a sense of duty that I served in another church, and my even when I went into doing security work, I didn't want to do something that was. Joe has a history. He's worked in security and been armed for his job. I haven't been. I did. I was a bouncer at some nightclubs and stuff when I was younger. But we went to this training and they talked about in the parts of the Bible where people come to your church and try to kill your kids and your wife and your pastor. That's not okay. You're there to protect them. If you're able and you're a strong man, why would you let that happen? And I totally bought in. And they showed parts of the Bible where people ask for help, ask for protection. So it's not like, oh, it's my time to go. No.
Right.
So I don't feel like I don't want someone come in with an AK and start loading on our church members, people who they're peaceful, giving money and doing good things. No, I don't like that. So I feel like, and I'm a physical way, and I think I have the right temperament to be there and be able to at least stop it. And if I have to give my life, I have to give my life. I don't know until that situation happens. But I think I would.
Right. But then there's also, I mean, it kind of depends on how much you are dedicating yourself to this. Like it's just a concealed permit, but it is also sort of like deciding your responsibility level. There are almost every active shooting incident that happens in the metro area. There are usually somebody within response distance that has their card and has a weapon on them, and they don't respond because they feel
Right.
uncomfortable. They don't have the temperament. They don't have the training. Like they actually could not hit an active shooter if they wanted to because they just haven't been taking classes or going to the range. So it's kind of silly to be like I really understand the conservative view on this where all responsible parents and adults should be gun owners. But the reality is that how many of them would have the time, discipline, and licensing and classes and range time, like the safety, and how many of them are willing to take the statistical risk that I think during our discussion when we started gearing up for this episode, you asked me how many people get hurt by their own hands who have a misfire. And I said one of the great unspoken statistics in the gun community is half of all gun injuries come from an accidental discharge. Half. Like that is, or no. It's not an accidental discharge. It's accidental discharge or intentional discharge on oneself. So meaning, half of every, like we assume all gun injuries come from gangsters shooting each other, mass shooters, and like war. That's not the case. It's half of everything that gets hurt by a gun is by accident or by the owner, basically.
Well, they talked a lot about the stress, and you made a good point of that. These people who were seasoned law enforcement officers who have fired their guns, who are regular, they practice scenarios with high-tech videos that show situational things. Their stress level gets so high, the cortisol gets so high, most people lose their hearing or their sight when there's an actual live firing situation, a live event, well, active shooter.
Yeah.
So people who are trained can lose numbness in their toes and their fingers, could defecate themselves. This is very common. This is not like, oh, this happened, I just got stressed. No, no, no. It's very common. I watch these corporate videos for church training, and they were of live shooters and stuff. Again, they were new to me, and they were so cold and so disturbing that I would lose sleep over them because they're not like Hollywood videos shooting. We've been so desensitized by Hollywood, but that's not what it looks like when someone gets shot in real life. It's
Yeah.
very ugly. It's very permanent. It's very brutal. You know.
It's also very simple. Like,
It is. Yeah. It's not that. There's not the colors of flames and cars flipping over. Right. Yeah. You're right.
yeah,
It's
and
simple.
nobody's body is jerking as they get unloaded on. It's like, no, no, no. There's a pop sound, and then they stop moving, or
They slop
they
over. Yeah.
yeah, or
And
they're
it's
still
haunting.
trying to move. Yeah,
It's
it's
haunting.
terrible.
Their eyes are open, even though they're. Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah. Now they did some training. They talked about leaving, tail between your legs. He said over and over. He says, you're in a restaurant with your significant other and a couple starts fighting. It doesn't matter if it's a $200 dinner. You get up and you walk out. Some guy bumps you on the street. It's now time to pull your gun out. Somebody disrespects you, cuts you off in traffic. It's not a time to pull a gun out. Have you ever, when you have your gun and someone's, I don't want to say disrespected you or looked down, have you ever felt even the urge, Joe, to tell them you have a gun or show them that you have a gun?
Legally, that's called brandishing, and it's very, very legal. It's not an attitude adjuster. I know I'm going to be repeating a lot of stuff that they say in trainings because I've done training
I
often.
just mean you personally, how you feel.
Yeah, how I feel. There have been occasions where I guess I have thought to myself, if they are armed, then possibly I'd let them know I was if they started an altercation. But it really hasn't come up. It's been so infrequent. Like the few times I responded to a gun incident on 3rd and Alder in Portland, so like near the clubs, and you say like police will sort of have like they'll get tingles or they'll like lose feeling or sight or hearing. I didn't believe I had seen what I saw. Like I saw somebody come out from between the cars. I heard the pops and the flashes, and I was like, oh, this is happening. And I had a couple of people with me, and we took cover, and I wasn't armed at the time, but I was still on the job. And so like I asked them, what did you see, a couple of times because I wanted to make sure. So like it is so weird with the adrenaline and the stress. Like your response won't be, I got to be a hero and pull a gun. It's did I just see what I saw? Unless it is really, really in your face and up close. And as far as like feeling threatened, like have I ever had somebody cut me off in traffic or yell at me and think I need to pull a gun on them? I don't think I've ever thought that. I think what
Okay.
I've thought in the past is I would like to punch them. Um,
That's one of my genuine. See, this is my two biggest fears I have personally about carrying a gun. I have my temperament's been all over. It's not as hot as bad now as it used to be when I was younger. Testosterone's a little lower. I'm afraid that I'll have a bad day and someone will
yeah,
cut me off or say something. I could be ultra sensitive, or I even worry about. I've had stretches with depression. I've had stretches with addiction, and I think one of these nights I'll drink too much and I'll think, what's my life coming to, and I'll put that gun in my mouth, and I have a genuine fear of that.
oh, legit fear of that. Like you talk about cops and how much stress they're under. There's a reason why the suicide rate for cops is so high, or anybody with a gun. It's because like it doesn't matter who you are. I can make this seem very human very quickly and not make people think this is quite as dark as it is. Just anybody who's listening, imagine the worst day of your life, and you have a red button on your belt that if you push that button, it all goes away. Like nobody would be walking around if that was the case. I do believe that. Like, I think that it doesn't matter what your relationship is with depression or anxiety or what your relationship is to drinking. Those are all exacerbating factors. I do want to say
Yeah,
most people who kill themselves are drunk at the time, but like, no, if you are,
they say
if
30% of cops have a high depression rate, which is
yeah,
high. That's high by. I mean, that's very high.
yeah, if everybody walking around had a button on them, not a gun, just a button that
Yeah.
stopped everything forever.
They have a
And
54% higher risk when compared to the civilian population.
yeah,
That's a lot higher. That's a lot higher.
so that is absolutely something to consider in the safety of gun ownership. If you're going to be responsible, you absolutely have to consider, like, am I, how, not how much do I trust myself, but do I take the proper psychological precautions? Like, I've gone to therapy and counseling. So, like, I personally know that I am very unlikely to do that, but anybody who becomes a responsible gun owner, they should ask that question. That is a very smart one.
Now, part of the class they went into, this was just so mind blowing for me. They talked about the anatomy of a body and where to shoot somebody. And so, me thinking, I'll get into it with Joe. I might shoot him in the foot because he's a jackass. You know what I mean? Or a warning shot. Oh, no. You shoot someone to stop someone. So they're showing this, shooting someone in the heart and the lungs, and they're explaining why. And they're explaining it takes 2.5 bullets to kill somebody usually, and then there's no such thing as a half a bullet. So it means you have to shoot someone. They talk about people being on drugs, people being angry.
Yep.
It's so
Stopping power is the sort of like colloquial name for it.
So this was giving me the heebie-jeebies. I'm already hearing about my wife being raped and murdered. And then I'm hearing about shooting some guy in the heart. I'm squirming a bit, and I'm
Yeah.
looking at the person's lungs, and then I'm seeing the trajectory of bullets. It was upsetting to me, and I was trying to be cool and not, I don't know, gonna leave or cry or I don't know. It was a tough day. It was a long day. It was heavy, And then some things they talked about. When they talked about de-escalating things, they talked a lot about, your ego, your pride, walking away. You don't have to be a tough guy. He also talked a lot about men's sensitivity. If we think that something's happening, we don't know the whole story. So
Yeah.
breaking up fights, or if you see a woman that looks like she's been domestically, they were warning that there's a lot more going on than here. You don't need to be a hero.
Right.
And
It's funny you say that because I can imagine both of us, like especially you, I'm sorry, but like when you have power like that, do you become the world's referee?
Right, and make things worse, and put yourself in danger and put them in more danger. I lived in a neighborhood in Las Vegas, and it was predominantly African American. And socially, I noticed something. And at first, it was very upsetting to me. I'd see couples, just couples, married couples in their early 20s, grown-ups. And they'd be arguing and they'd be yelling and screaming in a way that to me meant they were going to fight. But then over time, I realized that's the way they argue sometimes.
Yeah.
They're very emotionally charged, and they talk their voices are raised. It isn't the way I was raised and what I saw in predominantly white relationships that I'd been in, or with my friends or my family. I hadn't seen people fight like once in a while, but not all the time. And then I realized, that's just a social difference. Nobody's in danger here. But if I didn't know better, I would think I have to save this woman, or this guy's going to hurt her,
Right. To my ears, it sounds like a precursor to violence, but that actually might be because I myself am I usually sound calm, and I usually sound very civil. So to them, it's not a precursor to violence. To them, they're just having a very lively Chicago discussion.
Yeah, and to you, it sounds like you don't care, but that's just not the way you communicate. You don't get yourself worked up like that, right?
Right.
So this is what they talked about. Okay, he's talking about when police come. And he's pointing out that police are going to try to get you if you shoot somebody. Okay? He said, you don't say anything. They give you this card that you carry around with you. Okay? And this insurance company came in and talked to us. And what they do is, this is what they are. I don't know if you have this kind of insurance. But what insurance is if you shoot somebody. You read them this card. They have attorneys. They have 8 of them in the state of Oregon that are on retainer. And they're specialists on guns. Because what they're saying is if you shoot someone, you are going to jail, period. Okay?
Yeah.
You're going to jail. Whether it's your fault, you were attacked, they're trying to rape and murder, they broke in your house, it doesn't matter. In the state of Oregon, you cannot protect. If you try to break into my house and I shoot you, I'm going to jail because I can't.
At least
gun
temporarily,
laws,
yes.
Yeah, doesn't protect property. It just protects a person. So they give you this card to read, and they have these 8 attorneys, and so if you go to jail and you don't have your 20 grand for an attorney, how are you going to find an attorney who's an expert on guns? You might call a divorce attorney. It's going to be tough, right? So you don't give them any permission. You say, I'm going to help you. I'm going to cooperate 100% once my attorney gets here. And they talked about the different ways where police officers, like let's say you're a woman and you shot someone, they say they'll bring in a female officer to talk to you, and she'll let her hair down to try to get you to let your guard down, and she'll talk to you in a soft sweet. And I'm just like, is this a real thing, Joe?
We are someday going to do an episode on questioning and how police questioning works.
I can hear you licking your chops on this because you like this kind
oh my
of
god.
shit.
Yeah, procedural books for questioning. It's not about, give me names. Like they don't take you to a cold room with a bright light and yell at you, tell me if you killed this man. You pulled the trigger. Like where are the drugs? No. Questioning is making friends with you.
Are you okay? Oh my god, this is so scary.
Yeah.
Right?
Asking how you are, checking on you, going through the narrative with you sympathetically, but that really is just getting you to talk about the narrative of what happened. Yeah, it's wild.
So this is the thing. So there's a couple of things I take away from this. They said when you call 911, so Joe broke in and I shot you. I said, someone just came in. I had to protect myself. Send help right away. Hang up the phone, because the 911 call is continuing to play and record. So if you say anything like, I shot that motherfucker dead, I got that son of a bitch before he got me, all of that's going to be used against you and get you a prison term. And this is the last thing I want to talk about, and this is my takeaway. And I thought this was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. And so when you pull in your firearm on someone to protect yourself, be polite and be professional. You say things like, I don't want to be harmed. I'm protecting myself. I don't want any trouble. You don't swear. You don't cuss. You be polite, and you be to the point. They had us saying that. I'm going to be polite and professional.
Yeah.
And I couldn't help but think about Mrs. Brady, like... Because you think of the dirty hair and make your day, you son of a bitch. You get what you burn in hell. You can't say any of those things because all they're going to get you is a nice prison cell.
Yeah. Do you mind if I ask follow-up questions? Can we take 5 minutes to...
Sure, you're liking this now, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I said 30-minute episode. I meant I'll drag this out. Well, when we talk about be polite, be professional, be calm, what we're talking is de-escalation. And honestly, of the classes I've taken and the things I've been of the things I've participated in, negotiation, like the Chris Voss style negotiation, de-escalation tactics, talking people down, good lighting. Hell, you talk about the likelihood that you're going to get burglarized. If you want to lower that 7% chance that you get burglarized and assaulted, the combination of the two is about, if our website or our government is correct in its stats, if you want to lower that, just have really good automatic lighting around your house. And Todd, you said that most burglaries take place in the middle of the day. That also comes down to timing, do you have predictable patterns when they see your car out front and things like that. So just, yeah.
Or Facebook posts are a big one too. Of where you are. We're enjoying ourselves in Cancun.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Like, we want someone to break. No, you don't want anyone to break in when you're away. You don't want anyone to break in anything. It's very, I've had, I don't know if you've ever had break-ins, but it's very, I don't know what you call it, but you feel you're victimized. You feel very violated,
Right. You realize that the only thing separating you from the outside is plaster. So
yeah.
Yeah, it makes you feel very vulnerable.
Me and I have in domestic situations that I'm not proud of. I have shouldered in a door, and it takes all of 2 seconds. It requires no physical anything. I mean, I could kick a door down without even trying. I mean, like opening it, you could just break the deadbolt lock. That wood is only an inch thick, and a grown man can shoulder that in or kick it in and with no problem. I mean, it's just no problem. You just got to kick right where the door is.
Yeah.
I can show you how to do it.
learned how to use a traditional set of lockpicks. You're right. Trim wood is very thin, and if you don't want to leave damage, lockpicks are cheap, and also it's a crime in Oregon to carry them, I believe, still, but they're very easy to use, and like some of the most advanced locks, like unless they are like double tooth locks, you can go through a deadbolt lock with a lockpick in no time at all. So like,
But the ones we all have from Home Depot and Lowe's are no trouble. I mean,
yeah, they're nothing.
Yeah, they're nothing.
So, yeah, the thing that keeps you the most safe is really good lighting, good response times for your neighborhood, being near a phone frequently. Like, I when people talk, I've had my brother came to me, and I've had other people come and ask me if they should be gun owners, and I say, look into it, take classes, like start thinking about the level of responsibility that would take. I am not a one of the ultra conservatives who are like, everyone should have a military style rifle to protect their country immediately. I'm like, no. Let's think about, what are you getting it for? What, what are the other steps you're going to take?
I feel like I'm in a macho boys club when I'm at those stores, and I've been to them probably 10 times.
Yeah.
I can feel everybody winking at me. Like, bro, you're one of us. I feel that, and I don't feel that anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's the only place. I don't feel that way at the gym. I don't feel that way at Toastmasters. I don't feel that way at any of our public things we do. But when a gun store, you feel like, oh yeah, you're a blue-blooded gun carrying.
Right.
The more the better,
It's like the Illuminati.
It is. You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's a real thing.
But I would say, just for my own opinion and in my own experience, which is my own, it's you should be ready to do 4 or 5 other classes if you're going to be a responsible carrier. You should take de-escalation classes. You should look into the statistics of what gets you burglarized. Like you should be willing to take more steps to educate yourself than just the simple step of, I am gun owner. Second Amendment, hear me roar. It's no, take responsibility.
I don't know if I'd rather be dead or be in jail. That's something too, and that's something I'm kind of battling with. If I did have a bad day, or if I did do something, and let's say I wasn't at fault, but I did do something and took a life, would I be able to live with myself? Would I be able to handle with the depression and guilt? Another thing they talked about in the liability of, let's just say, we live in Portland and it's been polarized big time, that we have the worst homeless population in the world. They make it seem like that way, the media or whatever. But if you get attacked by a homeless person and you kill them, there's examples of those stories and stuff. They told countless stories about those, that you will be sued by the family civilly.
Yeah.
So even if you're not charged with a crime and go to jail or go to prison, you will be sued by a member of their family is going to want whatever you got. So are you willing to trade your life savings for protection?
That is an amazing point, and I think we should probably end on that. But I do want to ask you, did you hear about speaking of, there was a shooting at Hooters that happened in the Northwest.
We should have started the show with that.
And it was 2 guys who had their concealed carry permits, and they started an argument, and it was about how much a dog can weigh, like how much a dog can get up to, and it ended with them pulling their guns on each other.
And if one of them wouldn't have had a gun, isn't that terrible? That's called escalation, right?
Right. Yeah. That should be in all police precincts, honestly. When they talk about escalation, they should be like, okay, now if you're ever in a Hooters and you're having an argument about how much a dog can weigh.
But that's how things, and that's what I saw a prison video about that. The guy says, well, yeah, he killed him over a pack of cigarettes. It wasn't over a pack of cigarettes. He borrowed it. He didn't pay him back. He laughed at him when he asked for his money. And it escalates, right? And it's about ego and pride, and it's a lot of things. We all like to think we'd walk away, but then we're taught to stand up for ourselves too. You know? And then when you have that ultimate power in your hand to take life, I don't know if everyone should have that responsibility or can be trusted with that responsibility.